Well, hello there. My name is Dave Bila. Welcome to this new edition of News and Views, broadcast by Access LaPorte County on Public Access TV Channel 99. We are a weekly public opinion program addressing local, state, and national topics and issues of interest to the Michigan City and surrounding areas. Opinions are the views and the responsibilities of those making the comments and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of this program or its co-producers. We only adhere to broadcast rules, but no one's First Amendment rights of freedom of speech or freedom of the press will be either muzzled nor denied. Any unauthorized use of the accounts, descriptions, and events of this program without the express written consent of the three amigos is strictly prohibited. We hope you enjoy the program, the discussion, and the participants. Prior to bringing on issues of relevance to the community, there's a bigger issue out there, and it revolves around the 26th of this month. And it's Memorial Day. We've got two veterans here who came back. We are not beneficiaries of Memorial Day as I see it.
No.
There are individuals out there who didn't make it back. A lot of those issues touch the hearts of a lot of people out there, the families who lost their loved ones, whether it's from past wars to current political conflicts today. But there are also some vets out there who did come home and who are experiencing some of the wounds that will never heal. So again, we acknowledge Memorial Day for what it's meant for, but also take into account some of these other veterans who are on the streets who have problems that cannot be resolved. Bob?
Well, I'd like to start by mentioning a great article that was done in the Beecher by one of their professional writers, Andrew Talixon, and he interviewed the family of a Marine, Kenneth Scott, who was killed in Vietnam in 1966. He looked at it from the aspect of how it affected the family. And obviously these things are horrendous when they happen, and it had a really bad effect on their family, the loss of that individual who was so important. One of the reasons it hit me was because he was killed in 1966, and I spent most of 1966 in Vietnam. So I have some concept of what exactly possibly transpired, which I won't go into. But I think it's important that we mention what happens to the family and how they try to put their lives back together again. And Andrew did a great job of bringing that to the fore. The effect of someone dying. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a wartime situation. It can also be just a private situation where someone dies unexpectedly. That's also going to have a significant effect on the family. But those wartime situations tend to last for a very long time. He is buried in Knox. His wife was from Knox, so as a result of that, she took him back down to Knox, but they stayed with the situation for the last 59 years. It's hard for me to believe that that was 59 years ago. One of the things that I also want to mention is they're having a problem in the cemetery. Everyone who serves in the military can have a bronze plaque. It will give you their name, their dates of service, their rank, and a number of other things. And you either attach that to the ground in front of their plot or you put it on a gravestone on the back side of it. Unfortunately, we have people out there who are digging up these bronze plaques and selling them for whatever they can get, which probably isn't very much. And I certainly hope the police department will go after these people and start with the people who are buying those bronze plaques. Now, it's my understanding that if that happens, you can get another one, and I hope the family will certainly apply for another one. And I've told my family, just put it on the back of the gravestone. Makes it much harder to take away, but I would like to have one, and I think most guys probably would. In Greenwood Cemetery on Monday, normally they will have first of all, they'll have a parade down Decatur Street. Then they will go to the Civil War Monument. You will find that there are various monuments throughout Greenwood Cemetery, starting with the Civil War Monument. The next one is going to be the First World War Monument. The next one is going to be the Second World War Monument. And then there's one that basically is used for all of the various wars after the Second World War. Michigan City contributed an awful lot of individuals to all of those wars. Reason being, we were basically a middle-class type city based on industry. A lot of those guys were in pretty good health, so they're going to pass the requirements to be able to get into the military, or if they're drafted, to be able to get into the military. And we also had a naval armory here, which trained a lot of people to go into the Navy when those wars came along. As a result of that, these wars tended to hit Michigan City a lot harder than they did some other places. While we don't emphasize that, I think it's important that people do know that, and that was one of the major things that Michigan City down through the years has done. And you can see some of that in the museum that is just after the entrance to the park. It's called the Old Lighthouse Museum, if you want to see some of those situations. In terms of Greenwood Cemetery, there will be a 21-gun salute. When I was a kid, along with a number of other kids, we kept trying to get one of those shells as it came out of the weapons, and they kept shooing us back. I never did get one, but some of my friends did. I also lost some friends in Vietnam. So I got a couple of things that I'd like to use. And one of them, when I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Norfolk, just right along Norfolk, Virginia, and Little Creek, Virginia. And I got to see a number of battle sites. And just practically at every one, there would be a plaque that had this written on it. On flames eternal, camping ground, their silent tents are spread, and glory guards miss all around, the walk of the dead. It really is a situation of the people that come back dead, and what happens to those families, and then, as Dave mentioned, trying to get out of this situation. In practically every American Legion post, in VFW posts, and in DAV, Disabled American Veterans posts, there will also be a phrase that goes like this: some gave some, but there's also some gave all. So practically everybody that's in a wartime situation and in a combat zone is going to wind up doing something, having something occur to them. I was lucky. We have found, as a result of a lot of situations these vets have gone through, that a male's brain does not totally come together until they're 26 years old. I was 25 when I went to Vietnam. I turned 26 in Vietnam. We had under us, or I had under me, a lot of kids who were 18, 19, 20 years old that saw really horrible things. They came back seriously hurt as a result of that, even though they got to come back. And we really need, in our society, to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And I'm going to let Dave take it from here. He's got a right too. He's earned it.
You just about said it all, young man. Okay. As I said in my comments earlier, you know, there are wounds out there that are not created by a bullet. There are emotional wounds out there that the public of today still don't recognize. There are issues out there that individuals who are firm in their convictions continue to pursue facts. And these facts that they know exists go on deaf ears out there because the public basically forgot about us. Our opinion is meaningless. Our contributions that we've given to this community, is for naught. We get laughed at. I can point out to people, I can point out of individuals who basically accused me in public meetings that I didn't know what I was talking about. I would put them in a category of a rectal orifice. Tony?
Well, one more thing that I forgot to mention, and I would like to. The neighborhood that Kenneth Scott grew up in, they actually got together and out of their own pockets came up with enough money, and they put a marker in the Gardena playground area where he played as a kid with his name and service numbers and so on and so forth on that marker. But the city didn't do that, neither did the Department of Defense. It was the neighborhood that went around and put this up for them. And that marker is still there.
It's a more important weekend that we who haven't served can't fully comprehend. And if you can't make it to the things that are happening on this weekend, and you should show respect and reverence to everyone that served, whether they came home or they made it, or they didn't come home. Because without them, we would not be able to do everything we can do. And that goes worldwide. Without the people that served in many wars, the world would not be what we know it today. It would be drastically different, probably 180 degrees different. So this weekend, whatever you do, respect and reverence to everything that happened, because without them, there's nothing we can do. On a side note, and I respect the commissioners when they started this, they wanted to start naming bridges. And when that came up years ago, I thought, okay, let's do something very honorable. Why don't we start naming bridges after medal winners who have come back from war, who didn't come back from war? So when we drive over these bridges every day, we understand what happened to have the ability to drive over these bridges. There's not that many Medal of Honor winners or people that served, and I think that's a daily reminder. When you go to work or you drive to your house 2 times a day, 4 times a day, respect and reverence to have the ability to drive down those roads in a free country. And I think we should do that. And so if the commissioners watch and they want to name bridges, there you go. Real simple. Those bridges took a lot of work to design and engineer and create and drive over. It's a good way to respect and have reverence to people that gave us the ability to do that. For us that even didn't serve and don't understand all the things that come with service. There you go.
Again, thank you, Tony.
Well, okay, if we want to really get into some of the horror situations, I'm going to go back to World War II. And in World War II, it is now estimated that between Hitler and Stalin in Europe, they killed over 100 million people. It was fantastic. When they talk about the greatest generation, it was the greatest generation that stopped that. Go ahead, guys.
And they almost didn't, right?
No.
We were on the precipice, and I'm not a history fan, but if you go back and look at history, America pretty much did everything it can to stay out of that war. It wasn't until we were on the precipice for a world order that we jumped in. And in my opinion, that was too late. Lots of people died because we waited.
If Hitler had not invaded Russia, he probably would have won the war in Europe.
He probably would have. He probably would have taken Britain.
Yeah.
You watched the movie, I don't remember, it was the movie about Winston Churchill. And there's a sad part in there when he called America and asked for help, and we pretty much told him to go pound sand. And he was about to be wiped out. So there's lots of things that we did. I think, religion, by the grace of God, it is what it is. It didn't happen. But that doesn't mean it's not going to come over us again. So,
well, it's one of the reasons why we can't let that happen. We have to have a strong enough defense to prevent those things.
And you said it last week. And this is the same thing that the Reagan's administration said, right?
Yes.
And I believe that 100%. I remember the times, I was old enough to remember the election with Reagan and his charge of nuclear standoff, that he wasn't going to put up with it. And we have peace through strength. And I remember they chided Reagan years over year because he built the military up. They made fun of him when he talked about we were going to protect ourselves with satellite space wars. And guess what we do now every day pretty much in Israel? They're protected by a dome of technology. And now Trump's talking about the same thing because things have changed. The Reagan protection we have back over the United States and over Israel and other of our friends' countries, it's being penetrated. We've got to move on. Things are happening. China's moving into a space race with satellites and probably missiles up in satellites. So whatever we think we're doing 40 years ago, that's 40 years ago.
Right.
We're way behind. And I believe peace through strength.
Yep.
Well, just recently, again, for those who watch TV as much as I do, President Trump today signed and authorized nuclear energy as
Well, he
to move
did
forward.
in that
It's going to take 5 years.
in that executive order because Biden pushed nuclear energy too. What President Trump did is get the administrative out of the way.
Correct, yeah.
We are so 1960s, especially in nuclear, and it's dangerous. Nuclear is dangerous. Everything in nuclear, as you know, from cradle to grave, where the metal was made, where the bolts were made, there's so much administration, decades to get something running. We can't wait.
These are not gigantic nuclear 3 Mile Island approach. These are more like modular nuclear sites. And according to what I heard, it takes roughly about 5 years to get this project implemented. But we're looking to the future. And imagine the amount of electricity it will provide to the grid, and possibly lower our utility bills. Maybe because there's so much surplus energy.
Yeah, Finland did it. Went all nuclear. They had to turn some nuclear plants off because they went to a negative kilowatt cost.
Really?
They made so much power, and this was just 2 years ago. Finland was one of the highest because they tried to do different energy generation, and they said enough. I think they were like, I don't know, it was something crazy, like $10 or $100 a kilowatt. I mean, it should have been 15 cents. And they said, we can't do it. So they went to, and they got the administrative paperwork and the approvals out of the way. They are safe. They are running nuclear power plants. They turned on their last nuclear power generation, I believe, 2 years ago. And they had a negative kilowatt cost, so they had to throttle them back because they made too much energy.
There was an individual who was discussing these nuclear sites, and he had in his hand something like a golf ball. And he said there's enough energy in this golf ball sized nuclear plant that could flood the earth with.
But just remember, when you talk about this can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad.
Because you enrich
And
uranium.
really, we have to have an absolute handle on how all of this is being handled throughout the world. Well, let me just throw another statistic out there. When we first developed nuclear energy, the very first site that we hit was Hiroshima in Japan. And basically, they estimate that as a result of that, we, with one bomb, killed 89,000 people. I mean, it has to be absolutely handled correctly.
But what I've seen today, again, the Nuclear Energy Commission basically has been put in their place as far as rules and regulations
Yeah,
is
the
concerned.
administration has held this up for decades.
Yes.
I understand we want safe nuclear energy, but for really,
Once something is approved, it takes 15 to 20 years to implement the concept. We had NIPSCO, didn't
By that time, technology has bypassed.
yeah, didn't NIPSCO have
Yes,
a
it did.
project
Yeah.
here in Northwest Indiana
With the
that was
and the environmentalists defeated it.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
so to Biden's credit, President Biden quietly started up every past shuttered nuclear facility up in America. And now, to Trump's credit, he is getting the administrative. Just because you started them up doesn't mean the Nuclear Commission is going to drag you down for 15 or 20 years before you can actually hit the switch and create electricity. They've got so much, and there is enough safety and precaution you need. But really, how much are we going to safety it out so it's impossible? Anything has a problem. gasoline there in LaPorte County. They want a new gasoline station at 400 in Johnson Road. And they were worried about the spilled fuel going into the wells. That's my neighbor. That's where I live. And there are concerns about everything. And are we going to stop everything? I mean, I think you guys would know back in the day, we would put gasoline tanks in the ground, and of course they would rust and they'd start leaking. And now we know that we put gasoline tanks in the ground and we double wall them, and they're plastic, so they'll never rust and leak. And that was the problem. And I guess that segues right into our.
Well, it
What's
does
going
kind of
on?
segue, but now one of the situations we have is when we locate where there were old gas stations, sometimes called filling stations, we know that that possibility is there, and we have to check for it. You can't just build over it. You've got to check for those situations.
And people do, and quietly, we're going to segue into it, but quietly when they dig new development on old gas stations, which are the corners, which high profile corners, expensive corners, they dig those foundations again, and they might find an old tank, or they might find some old sand or dirt that's contaminated, and they're allowed to take that sand out, bag it up, or put it in a sealed container and truck it to a sealed landfill. That's what happens, folks.
Remediation.
That's how they remediate. Don't think there's some magic, we take the soil that's contaminated and we do something magically in the lab. No, they seal it up and they put it in a landfill that has a sealed bottom, and it just sits there. That's what happens to it. I did have a friend who worked for the Army, and out of college, and that's what he did. He went to Army facilities, but they went the extra step, and they took it out of the ground, they cleaned it, they burned it, they made sure it was not contaminated anymore, then they put it back. So they didn't just put it in a landfill, they actually took care of it. And now Michigan City's got a $500,000 grant, and we're going to find out what to do with these sites that potentially, first we have to know if they are, like Bob brought on the show. First you have to know if they are contaminated. If there's any reason to believe they're contaminated. An old gas station, an old dumping ground for paint, or barrels of something even back in the 70s we did that. First, that's a phase one. We take all the information we got, and boy, we got some good information. I've said this before. If you want to look at some really neat things, you go to IHAPI, IHAPI. It's an Indiana site put on by the Indiana Historical Society, and you can look at photos from 1930, 1950, 1960, 1970. You can look at old photos, and you can buy them. If you see the index, you want to buy it, it's $10. You can get the actual photo, and you can see some really cool stuff, like what was there before these sites. Was there a gas station? Was there reason to believe there's some contamination? That's a phase one. You gather all the information. Is there a reason to believe we need to look at the ground and see if it's contaminated? If it's not, we move on. And a lot of developers or people that buy property do a phase one. It's not very expensive. They give you a report. They don't tell you yes or no. They just tell you there's a reason to believe that there might be contamination or there not, and why. And then you move to a phase two. And Michigan City's got some money.
Now, when I was on the city council back in the early 80s, Michigan City was one of the first 7 enterprise zones established in the state of Indiana. Since I represented the 3rd Ward, I amended the ordinance to include up to Willard Ave through 11th Street to be included in a designated area that had cessation of growth. All right. The city of Michigan City, in its ultimate wisdom, did not follow my recommendations. They did not go up to Willard Ave. They continued, and I've been fighting this ever since. Individuals, I've been told I didn't know what I was talking about. Individuals started at the Amtrak tracks, and they moved east. They ignored the area that I included in the original, when I originally amended the ordinance to create this designated area that had cessation of growth, which it did.
Well, it got worse.
I didn't understand, I didn't understand why they were ignoring this particular area, the Barker Haskell 140-acre project and so on. I couldn't comprehend why they didn't want to go to the other side of Huron Street. It didn't dawn on me until May the 20th, 2025. I'm serious with this, ladies and gentlemen. May the 20th, 2025, the Michigan City was granted a $500,000 brownfield assessment grant. And in the information from the grant, it talked about sites. 7.7 acres of Memorial Hospital property that was not included, that was included in my designated area. But the area, 6.4% of the McKay printing property, and industrial facility, 6.2 acres former Marquette Mall building, 2.1 acres of furniture factory. I believe that's the old Wells Chairs property out on Highway 20. I'm just saying the McKay printing site wasn't a printing site because it's located on the other side of Huron. Okay, it was located within the Barker Haskell property designated area. Maybe, just maybe, I can't prove this yet, but just maybe some of our founding fathers knew about this potential designated brownfield site, and they didn't want to address it when I originally amended this area into one of the first 7 enterprise zones. For 45 years, somebody covered up something in regards to what's going on the other side of the tracks. That's the west side of Huron. It just dawned on me that, gee, now somebody recognizes my efforts. 45 years later, imagine what could have been accomplished in remediation for those 45 years. And now it's an issue of discussion. I'm just saying the $500,000 brownfield site on Memorial Hospital property has already been, sewers have already been put in there. It's supposedly been remediated for future development. There have been numerous projects that was to be put on that particular site. And now all of the millions of dollars that the City of Michigan City, through its redevelopment commission, put into that Pine Street project is now on the top of the priority list for 7.7 acres of Memorial Hospital property. Is this sort of putting the horse in front of the cart, or a cart in front of the horse? Somebody knew something, and maybe we're finally exposing a cover-up for the last 45 years.
Where's the printing site at? So
The printing...
Well, let me just interject a little bit, because I do know a little bit about that, because my grandfather bought a house on Willard Avenue in 1889. It was in the family for a long time.
and that was the place to be. Willard was
Oh yeah,
high cotton.
yeah. But they didn't have sanitary sewers. They did not have storm sewers. They had outhouses. And what you may find is that those outhouses, I don't know how long it takes that to dry up and get rid of, but and especially the prison, because I think it was the prison that put the first sewer in, down Willard Avenue. The prisoners dug it, went to Lake Michigan, dumped in Lake Michigan. I don't think you could do that today, but that's how they got sanitary sewers, was the prison built it, and then those people along Willard Avenue could tap into it. But before that, what effluent that prison put in the ground would be interesting to find out.
So I'm asking where the site is, because for everyone that reads these articles, you got to read between the lines. If they are looking at these places, there's development plans. Okay, so where's the printing?
Okay, again, if you look at Highway 12, 2nd Street, okay, and you go south roughly 1 block, okay, that McKay printing site, it's located in a white building adjacent to, there is a Barker Haskell building that has overhead cranes in it. Okay, that's where the McCain printing site is located. Except it wasn't, this is false. McKay Printing only recently moved in to Michigan City at that site. And what they're saying, what they're implying is the McKay Printing site is a polluted area. I don't believe McKay Printing polluted that area or polluted what's under the
Well,
ground.
it may not have. It may have been prior.
That is correct. It was prior, and so why should adverse publicity be given to a printing business when they had nothing to do with it? But again, that's the city of Michigan City. We'll blame somebody else rather than recognizing what the problem is.
I think they just put the name on there, but it's, again, you read between the lines. If they've picked these sites, they have development plans that probably can't talk about, and they want to make sure that they are environmentally okay. And I want to bring up, because now we can bring it out, the Marquette Mall, they put it on there, right? Marquette Mall.
Marquette Mall is on there.
Marquette Mall, because it did change hands. You can look at its public information. You go to the Beacon, LaPorte County Beacon is now owned by Ton and Blank, which is a good thing. Something's going to get developed. And now Marquette Mall, they're going to look at an environmental study to see if there's anything down there. I don't think they'll find anything, but I guess it's good to know.
No, we certainly hope they don't, because if they do, it's going to take quite a bit to remediate.
I don't know why you would find anything out there. If I look at, again, IHAPI, IHAPI is the historical website in Indiana. You can look at the 1930 photo, the 1950 photo, the 1960 photo, and then you see the mall. And you can see it. I think it's just farm field. I don't think there's even a gas station out there. There's nothing out there. So,
And based on my research of ditches in the city of Michigan City, with the help of Tony, there was an open ditch on the Marquette Mall property that runs from Ohio Street east on almost a fifth of the area into the Marquette Mall office property.
probably to the west side of the church. That's north of St. John.
Right. The Jerry Cabelin, he
Jerry's
owns.
retired.
Yeah, no. He owns his
Kids are taking over.
the theater site that he acquired. I remember watching water discharge on a hourly basis on the back side of the theater, dumping water onto the asphalt because the water table was so high. But this goes back maybe 30 years. And when you look at what the Michigan City Sanitary District has targeted as an area, they targeted Southgate neighborhood stormwater improvement projects, Village Road, Crescent Drive, Haas and Associates. You put that into this overall picture, and it goes back to what I've been saying for years, that ditches need to be cleaned out to remediate the standing water. And all of the water in the project, the Southgate neighborhood project, goes under Ohio Street into one roughly 10-foot box culvert. The sanitary district has to look at the ditches and study them, which are flowing ditches and which have been covered up by stuff. Asphalt parking lots, such as the Marquette Mall area. And they have to take into account that this water has to go someplace. And topographically speaking, this area is 68 foot higher than the level of Lake Michigan. Except because of the impediments that have been brought by the sanitary district and disrupting the water flow, this area cannot drain.
Not brought, just not maintained.
Okay, maintain.
They didn't bring it.
Yeah,
Didn't maintain.
Yeah, in 2021, I took pictures of the Monon Ditch, and in 2022, in June of 2022, I attended a sanitary district board meeting, showed them pictures of these clogged ditches. That's 2020, that's 3 years ago. And as of yet, nothing's materialized as far as remediation of cleaning out these ditches. Why doesn't somebody recognize what the problem is and why can they not provide a solution. The solution is there, but they continue, as I said in my presentation with about military people speak up, as they say today, by them not even recognizing the fact that I brought this issue up, they're spitting in my face, and I take offense to that. There have been attorneys on behalf of the Redevelopment Commission that told me I didn't know what I was talking about when I remonstrated on a particular project, but lo and behold, after I remonstrated, the Redevelopment Commission mysteriously was awakened to the fact that they have to provide a yearly report to Gateway, and they failed to do that from 2014 to 2021. I could point out a lot of issues, but what I'm not looking for credit. I'm just looking to build a better community, and for them to continue to turn their back on me, and continue to turn back. This particular project, this $500,000 project, was this award reflects hard work and collaboration between the city, BCA, and the Economic Development Corporation of the City of Michigan City, said Clarence Holtz, executor of the Michigan City Economic Development Corporation. These funds will help build a more competitive economic landscape by making strategic sites ready for development. It's about revitalization with purpose. What have I been doing for the last, 35, 40 years, if not revitalization with purpose? Gentlemen?
Yeah, you read in between the lines, those parcels were picked strategically. We know something's about to happen. They've already talked to people, there are already plans. I don't know what they are, but that's the way I read. Now, what Dave is talking about, these ditches, and again, you could go to the LaPorte City Library. In the archives room, there is a book that shows you ditches from 1930. It has a really neat map. These farmers, and we have, I'm not say a problem, we're working against ourselves, because engineers and surveyors and people that design drainage systems forgot why the farmers were so smart. Just go to South County, get out of town, see how smart these farmers are. They're pretty smart people, because they fight water every day. Too much water, too little water. That is their livelihood. The ditches they dug were not just to get surface water away. They dug these ditches pretty deep. They were to pull subsurface water with them and keep the ground at the moisture content level they need to grow crops. In South Michigan City, there was a lot of blueberry farms, so they needed more water. Some areas they needed less water because they were growing strawberries and apple orchards and beans and corn. And you see these ditches, and over the last 50, 75 years, engineers put pipes in. Some were pretty smart. You'll find some pretty smart engineers. We talked about it out there by the old Morrison site, where they put pipes in the ground on Wabash and Washington that had perforations to take the groundwater away and the surface water away. Did wonders. Most people never did that. They just put pipes in, they collect the storm water from the surface, and they get it away as fast as they can. They completely negate the thought of having subsurface water, which is in Village Green, Marquette Mall, Streetville Pond, the whole area around Ames Field has subsurface water that needs to be taken care of. We can put new pipes in, and we can seal pipes up fantastically. Our plastics and our seals and our gaskets are amazing. But we need to let the water come into the pipes and flow away out of the ground. And that's what needs to happen in the area by Ohio and south. Even though it's higher, 68 feet, right?
Right.
Still a lot of water sitting there, trapped in a layer above a clay seam, just sitting in there, going sometimes into people's basements, like the Marquette Mall Theater. I have a friend in that area who has 2 pumps running, sometimes 20 hours a day. There's so much water, and in your neighborhood, there's so much water in that soil. It comes up in their sump pumps, and they pump, and they pump, and they pump, and they don't, and they waste hundreds of dollars of electricity.
Now, let me go back, because I know a little bit about this. Some of that area may be springs. When you talk about subsurface water, people are going to think that, well, that's drained down from when it rained. Some of that may be coming up as a result of springs. And I know a couple of them because we used to play in them.
I grew up in Springfield Township, so we had a lot of springs.
And you may find that trying to get that subsurface water out of there, once these springs are still, well, the springs will still be there. You may get more water out of those springs, and as a result of that, you're going to have some serious problems trying to dewater that area.
Now, just recently over the weekend, I happen to know, Bob knows of the property on the corner of Barker and Poplar that I have.
I used to mow that lawn.
Right. The tenants who rent from me, when they paid their rent, they said that downstairs sewage water is backing up into their basement. And I says, well, I got a solution. I got a solution. And so I brought out my map and I talked about the ridge line, that the area of where they're located on Barker and Poplar is included in this west side moraine that is roughly 20 foot higher than the level of Lake Michigan. I'm sorry, it's 68 foot, I'm sorry, 48 foot higher than the level of Lake Michigan. That water runs downhill. And they told me of this water problem, and they told me of the neighbors in this area, senior citizens who have affluent coming back into their, through no fault of their own, coming back and their basement is filling up. A realtor who owns property in this area, when I talked to her a few days ago, talking about the property that she owns on York Street and about the water that's accumulating in her basement. And when you study this moraine, this west side moraine, water runs downhill every place else other than the city of Michigan City. This tells me that the water level, the groundwater level has encased the sewage pipes, and certain areas of these sewage pipes have allowed this groundwater area to penetrate, and it is going to the point of least resistance, and the point of least resistance is people's basements. It encompasses a good, basically, third of the land mass in the city of Michigan City.
Well, the first thing you got to look for is there...
I'd say 40%.
40%?
More than a third.
Yeah. The first thing you got to look for is there a storm sewer in that area? But I can tell you this, when we were kids, about 7, 8, 9 years old, maybe a little less than that, that corner that comes together on Barker and Poplar, that would flood all the time. We go get our bathing suits and go running, literally. We'd come out running in that thing, and our parents would take a hose and hose us down before they let us in the house.
You provided a solution earlier. We have a Cheney Run going to the east.
That's where this drains, Cheney Run.
Well, yeah, but is there a storm sewer?
There is no storm sewer in this area, in this moraine.
Cheney Run.
It all goes to, even through its ultimate wisdom,
to Cheney Run.
Oh, okay. Goes underneath the, north of the
right.
Greenwood Cemetery.
through its sanitary district's ultimate wisdom, to relocate the water from roughly 40 foot down the hill. They create lift stations, and they elevate the groundwater into plumbing pipes that eventually then go over the hump and goes down the Cheney Run. How it was engineered in the past, that's how it was engineered. But there are solutions, and that is some way. My solution is really simple, because I said, well, let's just clean out the ditches and let Mother Nature do her job. But for 2021 to 2025, I brought this information to the sanitary district. They don't even give me the time of day.
Because if you can look at this map, and this is available, another website, Indiana Map, you go to type in Indiana Map, indianamap.org. It's a free map in the state of Indiana. On the left column are all the layers that Indiana gives you for free. If you scroll through those, you can go to high-res water map, and it'll give you this, and it'll show you every pipe, ditch, stormwater, small swale that goes all in the whole state of Indiana. But you could zoom into Michigan City. If you like to do mazes, which are kind of fun when you do a maze, you could follow the storm pipes all the way through here, comes down, York and Decatur area, and it comes over, it goes down Barker, goes back south, and goes down Pearl, and goes into the Cheney Run. If you can actually follow when it rains all the storm sewer pipes in Michigan City, and you can see in this west watershed, everything, well, I would say 85% of this stuff is draining all the way through town, down to York and Decatur and East Barker Avenue, and then go back through the hill to the cemetery, and then back Pearl and over to the Cheney Run over there by Queens of All Saints. You can see that, and if you like mazes, it's kind of fun to look at.
Wouldn't it be easier, Tony, if you come down here someplace and pull a plug out of a ditch
Down this west
down
side.
this way and allow the natural flow of water to proceed down to level of Lake Michigan? Doesn't that make more sense?
It would have. I think it even would have made more sense back in the 40s and the 50s why they plowed through. And I've looked at those manholes up there at Barker and Jackson. They're 30 some feet deep.
Yeah.
I don't have a range level rod that goes that deep, and I don't want to lose it in there. But they are really deep because they plowed through the hill, and you can look at these watersheds. They're also available to you. And when you overlay the watersheds on the pipes in Michigan City, it's pretty obvious where the pipes start and stop at the watershed, other than this west watershed, which everything goes against Mother Nature to go through the hill to the Cheney Run.
I want to read something. This pertains to the Michigan City Sanitary District does not have a specific program or service to directly assist customers with sewage backups in their basement. However, they are responsible for maintaining the city's sanitary storm sewers, including catch basins and treating wastewater. They also maintain drainage ditches and have a full industrial pre-treatment program. If you have, ladies and gentlemen, if you reside in this west side moraine, and if you have water problems, okay, you can contact the Michigan City Sanitary District by calling 219-874-7799, and you could contact them and you could report problems of standing water in your basement. Okay? If enough people in this moraine area would deluge the sanitary district with phone calls, because I know people in Riviera Drive who don't have a basement, just have a crawl space. And when this water, surface water, gets high enough, their crawl space gets flooded. If they are deluged with enough complaints, that's 874-7799. That's the Michigan City Sanitary District. Just maybe the sanitary district will recognize that there is a problem here. You would think after 45 years, this problem would be resolved. I worked with Jim McCarty back when I was on the city council pertaining to the high water level of whenever it rained, I would get roughly about 8 to 10 inches of water into my basement on a corner of Barker, on a corner of Buffalo and Russell Street. It was guaranteed. It was just like a cow urinating on a flat rock. That water came out of the bottom course of the block. And my basement would flood. I'd have to elevate all of my elevate the washer and dryer on skids or on blocks to keep it out of this water problem. Further on down the road, further on down on Buffalo, my son bought a property further on down, closer to the CSX tracks.
Lower.
And I remember going into his basement, and there is a soil pipe going down to his basement to like a T, and you could see water flowing roughly about 6 foot down adjacent to these tracks. You would think after 45 years somebody would recognize that we have a problem. Well, we got about 6 minutes to go.
Well, they did. They put the tunnel in up there by the Elston School, and we're going to try to.
The sewer to nowhere.
Yeah, so we're going to try to drain it that way, which is going to be very expensive.
I thought they were going to try to use that sewer.
Yeah, that's what they were trying to do in the Lafayette Barker area, which is the problem.
And when I attended a Board of Works meeting, when the sanitary district made their initial presentation to their report to MS4 that they have to file on a yearly basis, no mention whatsoever by the sanitary district engineer who made this presentation pertaining to this West Side moraine. Everything talked about, oh, goody two-shoes, and goody reports, and goody this and goody that. Mike Cuss looked at this issue. He basically, his comments were, it's a very expensive project, but I believe he thought it must be done. But where are you going to get the money? Well, here's a start. If we got $500,000 for the brownfield sites pertaining to remediation on these properties, don't you think that the dewatering could be a part of remediation, or am I speaking?
Nope, can't use dewatering for that.
You can't dewatering
You
for
can
that?
monitor, you can't dewater.
You can monitor. We don't even have monitors there, other than the
Yes,
lift.
we could have monitors with that money to
Really?
know what's in the soil. Because if you have a phase 3 environmental level, you would have monitoring wells, and you'd look for contaminants in the water and the soil, and those wells could have digital monitors to tell you the height of the water in the soil.
Well, one thing, you wouldn't have to dig too far, because the base of Strebel Pond is nothing more than a level of black muck. You know, you wouldn't have these monitoring wells, it wouldn't have to be dug too deep.
And technology gives us those. It's pretty neat. You can put these levels on there, and they feed you through the cell tower, and they feed you data. It's pretty cool.
And who's responsible for Strebel Pond? Oh, wait, I read
How
something
much did
here.
that pond cost? 20 million?
Strebel Pond, here,
Councilman Jankowski, right?
Yeah.
Michigan City Sanitary District also operates and maintains Strebel Pond, a flood control facility that includes family and dog-friendly outdoor recreational spaces for public use. It's basically exposing a toxic dump site to that area, because people are breathing whatever evaporates from that Strebel Pond area.
And where did they put the soil for Strebel Pond?
They put it just south of the prison property off of Woodlawn Ave as it curves around the south side of the prison property.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, I'm speaking the truth. I'm 80, I'll be 82 in October. What I'm bringing to the public is nothing more than to build a better community. And when we continue to, when a city entity continues to turn its back on their responsibility that their website says that they're responsible for, that don't make sense, ladies and gentlemen. So if you got a water problem, don't hesitate to call a sanitary district. That's area code 219-874-7799. Convey to them your location, because I'll guarantee you it won't be too difficult to find a ditch adjacent to the place where you live based on what this map is, because I live on St. John Road and Ohio Street, and we're right in the middle.
And there used to be an old ditch there.
Yeah. There used to be a ditch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the old timers. Jim Plisky, he passed away, and he was telling me about water problems out there. When I was on the city council, the old timers told me about these problems.
There is springs under a lot of that land. There's
But-
springs under Poplar Street. I can tell you that.
But again,
they covered it over.
But that's correct. They covered it over. They covered it over. They did not address the issue at hand.
Well, that was 1920. They had no idea.
And the residents of Michigan City has been receptive.
Well, the Romans had aqueducts. And
That's true. They did.
Yeah. And everybody is taken for
The
granted.
farmers had ditches.
Yeah.
So if
Well,
you,
that's what they covered up, was the ditches, and put the pipe in there.
And they didn't perforate the pipe to let the water leave.
The problem was it was a combination storm sewer, sanitary sewer.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Yeah.
the same.
but now we're all separated throughout the city.
Pretty
Well,
much.
we
Pretty much.
tell everybody we are. I'll take their word for it.
If you have any doubt, and if you're able to get in your car, drive down Earl Road, north of Strebel Pond, you'll see a dirt road going back to the CSX tracks. Take that dirt road as far back to the tracks as possible. There's a gigantic propane tank. Don't run into the propane tank, because that creates some problem. get out of your car and look at the water level inside the ditch that has culverts running under the CSX tracks that are half full of black dirt. The water cannot proceed. But if you go, and if topographically speaking, if you go from one side of the CSX tracks to the other side of the CSX track, there's a 10-foot drop in elevation. If the ditches were cleaned out, that water would then be allowed to flow and proceed into Black Ditch into Porter County. Somebody has been working on this to a certain extent, but there's a little additional manpower, in my mind, that, you know, a simple backhoe, clean out the debris that's in these ditches to allow the water to flow naturally. But when you look at this project that the sanitary district has targeted pertaining to the Southgate project, the Southgate project is here, and the water problems all revolve around a little area under Ohio Street, a box culvert. All of these ditches, all of the water is directed to one specific area. We're getting down to 2 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to give up on this. The sanitary district has its responsibilities. We all pay a sanitation fee that includes a maintenance program, I believe. Where is the money going in a maintenance program when your basements continue to flood? We're getting down to the last 2 minutes, gentlemen. I'm the disgruntled veteran.
Well, all right, if that's the case, both of us were very lucky. We got back, we got to get married, have families, see our kids grow up, and even see our grandchildren grow up. But there's a lot of guys out there that didn't, and those guys have to be taken care of. You're starting to see private organizations do it. To me, that's a responsibility of the federal government. Now, it's great that these private organizations are doing that, but it's still the responsibility of the federal government, and they need to step up. Thank you.
Have a safe Memorial Day weekend and honor those that serve.
Yeah, go to Greenwood Cemetery, look at the various statues that are in there, the various memorials, and then go down to the park, because there's quite a few of them down there also, and you can think about why those are there.
We got less than a minute. It's wrap-up time.
Again, gentlemen, Memorial Day is for the deceased veterans. Poppy Day is coming shortly. I believe the VFW Post will be selling poppies. Kick a few bucks into the container and wear a poppy in honor of the veterans out there. I want to thank everybody for watching. Your input as to improvements or criticism of this program is greatly appreciated. Please contact Show's Tribe co-producers Bob Pollock, Dave Bila, or Tony Hendricks with your comments. You can email Bob at skrpollock@gmail.com, Dave at djbila1@hotmail.com, or Tony at emailagm@yahoo.com. Or you may direct your ideas for any future shows to our one and only Pain in the Neck staff writer, Sarah Bellum. Showing of our program.
Wait a minute, water's going to come out of that.
Yeah. Showing of our program will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Also Monday evening and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. and on Channel 99, and numerous times whenever Anthony or Tony gets some dead time to fill. You may also enjoy watching our program on YouTube at Navigate News and Views, or I punch in 99 Navigate News and Views and I get it. We got about 20 some hours in the can. If you want to reflect back on some of what we said, you will find that we have been consistent. We don't fabricate stuff. We don't ignore stuff. We acknowledge our responsibilities and bring it to the public. I want to thank everybody for watching, and make it a good day.